So on page 81. So we'll begin again, chapter Tes Zayin, which is the right-hand column. Now, what was said before was, he pointed out, that's what's unique to the mitzvah to light the Chanukah menorah is, what's unique to it in contrast to every other mitzvah, all the 613 Torah mitzvahs and the other 6 rabbinic mitzvahs. What sets it apart is that there's a third category, a third level of observance, namely all other mitzvahs. So there's the basic level, and then there's the enhanced level. The person wishes to do more than the mandate. So there's much more detail one can add. We give the example of a simple transistor radio, or opposed to a radio that fills this wall with so much more nuance. However, when it comes to Hanukkah, there's a third category. And we identified these 3 levels. The first level is 1 candle per household each night. The second level is 1 candle per adult male per household each night. And the third level, which doesn't exist in any other mitzvah, is a matter of dispute between Shammai and Hillel, whether we start with 8 and go down to 1, or start with 1 and proceed to 8 for the 8 nights. Strangely, the Jewish custom is that if you're going to observe the mitzvah of Hanukkah, which most Jews probably do, they don't even know there's level 1 or 2. Everybody's observing it at the Mahadrin min ha-Mahadrin, the enhanced within the enhanced. And he's going to explain why this is so. So he started to explain again, B'Chanukah, Yeshnam Shnei Nisim. There are 2 miracles on Chanukah we're celebrating. Aleph hanitzachon b'milchama, the victory in the battlefield. Sha'alav hiskinu halil v'hidah. To commemorate that, our sages enacted the Hallel prayer, the Thanksgiving prayer, and the Hidah, the Hallel, the praise of Hallel, and the Thanksgiving of Allah Nisim, which we say in, right? We say in the Midah and in the Grace After Meals. That's 1 miracle, the battlefield, the victory. A tiny, beleaguered, untrained, poorly equipped handful of people drive out a superpower. That's a great miracle. That's number 1. Beis nes pach Hashem, and then there's the miracle of the oil. That there was enough for only 1 day. It required 8 days to get new pure oil. It lasted 8 days. Shebeglala his skin is to commemorate that. The sages enacted the lighting of the menorah. Now, this third level that we just identified doesn't exist in the first commemoration, in saying Hallel. Level 1 is level 2, level 3, no such thing. There's just 1. It only exists, these 3 levels, when it comes to the lighting of the menorah, which is connected to the miracle of the oil in contrast to the miracle of the battlefield. So we're getting closer to our quarry to understand why there's 3 levels. First thing is to understand it's a different miracle. It's different than the miracle of the victory, is the miracle of the oil. What's the difference? What's the advantage, the difference between the miracle of the oil relative to all miracles, including the miracle on the battlefield? The difference is, you won't be understood first by explaining and introducing the way God conducts himself with us. There are 3 categories of conduct. Aleph, hanhaga tivis, a natural conduct. God blesses us. We're talking about, but not where God's concealing himself. But when God is revealing himself, so in God's revelation, there are three ways he reveals himself. Or you might phrase it, there are three ways he confers his blessing. One is anogativis, it goes in nature. So it's a blessing. That his life, his health, his livelihood is successful. It's not miraculous. But clearly, it's Hashem's doing. Everything is Hashem's doing. But how is he giving through the garments, the vehicles of nature? So that's the first one. Anogativis, the natural order, the natural conduct. The natural conduct is also divine, but it goes through the laws of nature. Again, health, success in business. When these things happen, they are miracles. They're divine blessings enclosed in nature. Clear? Then Beis, there's a higher revelation of the divine that situations may call for it. And that is Handhoga Nisis, where Hashem conducts with us in a way that is miraculous and defies the laws of nature. Hanailis Minateva, higher than nature. What kind of miracle falls in that category? The battlefield. The battlefield, the victory of the war on Hanukkah. The Darge Kazu, on this level of miraculous conduct, that would define Gam Nitzachna Milchama Shebechanukah, the miracle of the war in Hanukkah. That was a nes, a miracle, Shonailim Nateva, beyond the laws of nature. By the laws of nature, it was impossible. It could not happen. Shekein Hayazeh, what happened was Geboidim Biyad Chaloshim, the mighty in the hands of the weak. Varabim, and the many Biyad Ma'atim, in the hands of the few. In other words, he's saying vastly superior, both quantitatively and qualitatively. Now he says, if both armies were mighty and we won, that's also to be celebrated. That also would be success for which we would mark and be grateful, of course. There's a war, and a war could go, you never know. But still, if it was equal armies and we won, avaloines wouldn't be a miracle. However, what did happen was miraculous. Mighty in the hands of the few, they were yeshiva boys. They were not trained soldiers. They didn't have proper arms. And they were a handful. Matisyahu and his 5 sons, that was it. And some other Jews that joined them. We don't know the numbers, but there were very few. And Rabbi miyad miyatim, and many in the hands of the few. So when that happens, that's a miracle beyond nature. So now you're thinking, what else could there be? Is either God blesses us in nature or beyond nature? What's the third level? Now, Gimel, bottom of the right-hand column, Hanhoga Hanailis Minanes. Then there is a divine relationship or conduct or revelation that is higher than miraculous. Higher than miraculous? What is it? Let's go further. God is revealing himself in a manner and performing something. It's not necessary for physical survival. Not even necessary for spiritual survival. He's saying that the miracle of the oil was not necessary. It didn't save any physical life, and it didn't provide any spiritual salvation either. But you're saying, yes, it did. You're thinking, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that it did because the oil was impure and they couldn't light the menorah. So the miracle enabled them to do something spiritual, fulfill a mitzvah that otherwise they couldn't. Why are we saying now that it wasn't necessary even for spiritual considerations? The answer is,
Because everyone is impure at the time, by halacha, you're allowed to perform a mitzvah.
That's correct.
On the case of that,
That's right. So let me share that with our listeners. Thank you, Yeshua. The reason that it was not necessary even for spiritual reasons is because the halacha is when everybody is impure, and that was the case in point. Why were they impure? Because there was death, there was a battle, and being under the same canopy as a dead body renders one impure for 7 days. And everybody was. So what's the law? If everybody's impure, you go ahead and use impure oil. As in the case, for example, of, we learned this out from the Korban Pesach. If the majority, doesn't need the entire, but the majority of the people are ritually impure on Erev Pesach, then we go ahead and everybody brings the Paschal Lamb on Erev Pesach. Individuals not, that have to wait for Pesach Sheni, which is why it was instituted. But if the majority is, then the laws of impurity are simply suspended. So since the laws of impurity and purity are suspended, there was not even a need for the miracle of the oil. All they need to do was take an olive, squeeze it, and use it. You're impure, that's okay. You'll do it anyway. The mitzvah is still fulfilled completely. And then in 8 days, you'll use pure oil after you've gone through the purification process, which takes 7 days. We sprinkle with the ashes of the red heifer and birds in the mikveh and so on. So why did God do the miracle? There's no justification. So he says, continuing, Kachi, now top of the next column, Kachi nes mitzias Hashem, Toher. So too the miracle of even finding the pure oil. You didn't have to find it, didn't have to be there. So obviously this is a spiritual thing. And moreover, so why did it happen? The Gemara asked this question. And the Gemara says, so why did God do it? Not for any agenda, but rather, here's the key point. God is showing, I love you. The endearment. It's not an agenda. It's not, with this oil, you can now do a mitzvah. No, you can do the mitzvah anyway. So it's a miracle that's just essential. It's like giving a gift to your wife, not a birthday, it's not an anniversary, and you come home with a gift or some flowers. Be careful, she might faint. So why are you doing it? And you tell her, because I love you. And there's a song they used to play, I just called to say I love you. There's no agenda for the call. It's not, I'm going to bring a do. It's not functional. Not functional on any level. Not even a phone call to arrange, we're going out tonight to have dinner. That's also, it's functional, but for something that is part of the relationship. No, we're talking about a phone call that doesn't accomplish, no agenda, not in order to. It's just to say, I love you. And that's the miracle of the oil. It wasn't necessary. It didn't save anybody, not physically, not spiritually. Hashem did it to express his essential love, unconditional love and bond with every Jew. Now we're going to translate that. Now the question is, that's beautiful, but why did it happen only on Hanukkah? That's what you're thinking. I'm becoming a mind reader in my old age. No, it's just logical. It's the next question that's going to be asked. This is beautiful, but why Hanukkah? We'll see. It's a response to where the Jews were.
Is
and
there
the
any
relationship with
connection to
God.
them being impure, and that would the process of the 7 days until they're pure again? Is there any correlation to that?
No, we're saying that's not necessary. Not necessary to have the miracle. You just keep on using the impure oil. When you get pure, 7 days later, you make pure oil. It wasn't justified in terms of the mitzvah being observed. All right, so it could have been done with impure oil. So now the question is, why did this happen on Chanukah? All right, so now we're going to translate this. We're talking now about the way Hashem deals with us. We identified 3 levels. Blessing in nature, blessing that is miraculous, and then blessing that is beyond agenda, just pure love. So we're going to say, what's the parallel in our relationship with God? That's 17. Yud Zayin, page 81, left-hand column. Since everything that is dependent above, in other words, the way God deals with us is a reflection of the way we relate to Him. In the words of our sages, Hashem conducts Himself midah keneged midah, measure corresponding to measure. Or another way of expressing this relationship is the pasuk, the verse in the book of Ecclesiastes, Kehelas, that reads, it's a famous verse, Kamayim panim al panim, in the same way that the water reflects the face or a mirror that's put before it. Kain lev adam el adam, so too is the heart of man to man. If you show love to someone, sooner or later they're going to respond. But the deeper meaning is mortal man, supernal man. The divine Adam, God. The heart that the relationship that we show to Hashem, Hashem responds in kind. Now, I just want to add, it's not exclusively that God's waiting for us. Sometimes He just reveals His presence to us and shows His love and saves us when we hadn't initiated it at all. It's not a response to us. But overall, it always is a response. When there is an initiation from below, in the words of Kabbalah, there is when there's an arousal or an initiation from below, there is a revelation and an arousal from above. It's reciprocal. So we're going to see in Chanukah, there was this third level. But before that, first in general terms. So he says, there's 3 ways to serve Hashem, corresponding to the 3 ways we just described. Natural, miracle. Let's use this language to make it clear. Natural, miracle, essential, essence. Beyond agenda. Essence means not expressed, not for an expression, for being. For being. Follow? That's to summarize and to keep the flow of our discussion. We'll use those 3 words. Natural, miraculous, essential. Or, another way, within, beyond, essence. So how is it with us and Hashem? And Hogetivis, there is the natural conduct that a Jew serves God. Boy, they kiyam, Torah mitzvahs, he does. Let's describe a Jew serving God level 1, naturally. What does it mean naturally? He does Torah mitzvahs, and he does so because he understands, because he feels, because it's beautiful. And there's many levels within this level 1, but included in this would also be in order for the reward, the blessing, and the success that comes. That's one level. So a person who's only operating on this level is going to observe the mitzvahs just basically. He does his obligations. Hanogativis. Like the verse says, he goes on to say, Hashem says, if you follow my statutes, the rains will come in their proper time, and the earth will give its yield, and you'll be blessed. So it's a reciprocal, natural. You're serving God based on, it makes sense, your own nature. You get a natural, divine response invested in nature. Then there's a higher level that a person, these are choices. Hanhagen, this is where a person serves God miraculously, as opposed to naturally. What does it mean to serve God miraculously? It doesn't mean you're flying through the air, jumping off bridges. What's miraculously? What does this mean? So here he pushes himself beyond the mandate. And he invests himself in the observance of the mitzvahs more than just what you have to do in order to fulfill your obligation. So this is already, you know what, the first one is like a servant. He's a loyal servant. And he serves the master. and he does what he's told, and he gets rewarded, and everything is fine and good in the world. Then there's a servant who loves his master and will do more than the master actually asks him. He's looking for opportunity to, and enhances. He puts it in that extra mile. In the text here. This is a level where a person is not satisfied, doesn't stop with just keeping the mitzvah at the halachic level. He enhances the mitzvah. Question?
Like it's a pop in my head. I'm thinking of Sukkot, and there's many instances there where people go beyond a level of the mitzvah.
Right, 100%. It's cold, whatever. And by halacha, he could go inside or even raining. And he stays inside. That's going beyond the law. There are many examples in all mitzvahs. Yeah. But anything, you buy like the tefillin on the mezuzah. You can buy a basic tefillin, basic mezuzah, that's 100% kosher. Or that's level 1, that's nature. Level 2 is a mezuzah and tefillin that has more nuance, not mandated, but again, the transistor or the radio that fills the wall, and they're bigger. Okay, we'll soon get to the third level. So here, mishtadel shekim mitzvah here is already a level where he wants to do the mitzvah beyond the mandate of the law, beautify the mitzvah. So that's symbolically miracle. Why? Because he's going beyond the law. You don't have to. Miracle means a conduct beyond nature. He's going beyond his nature. To make it clear, the first level is the whole motivation is makes sense to me. I feel I enjoy. That's as far as I go. I'm not pushing my envelope. There's no element here of going beyond that which is justified logically. What I have to do, I have to do. That's level 1. Level 2 is you don't have to do this. You fulfill your obligation, you'll be rewarded. And nonetheless, he still seeks to observe the mitzvahs beyond the mandate, going beyond the natural law, the mandate of the law. That's symbolically miracle. He's going beyond his nature, beyond logic. You don't have to do this. So Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Midah Keneged Midah, Hashem responds measure for measure. Hanhaga Shalman Meteva. So that would elicit the response that God responds back in a conduct that's beyond the laws of nature. What could be higher than that? Then there's a third. Achanhaga Shalishis Ba. But the third conduct, Achrak Yalidei Mesidus Nefesh. We're talking about sacrifice. Self-sacrifice. The first two is not self-sacrifice. The first two, you're giving, basically, you're putting in that extra. Third level is sacrifice. This is even higher than hidden mitzvah. Here, there's many levels to self-sacrifice, but basically he's saying it's not for an agenda. There's no agenda here. It's self-sacrifice. Make it very simple. Quite literally, ready to give up his life. And if you give up your life, he can't do more mitzvahs. He's not going to be earning any more reward after that. You just capped it. I told the story the other day. Stories. There's 1,000 stories, 1,000,000 stories in our history. I just told it the other day. I'll share it with you briefly. So there was a chassid. It's a beautiful Hanukkah story. Rabbi Sisonkin was his name. He came out of Russia in the 60s. And he spent many a year in the Gulag, in Siberia, in the labor camps. And his crime was, he was one of the key players in the Chabad underground yeshivas, teaching children Torah, etc. One of our many unsung heroes. So he told the following story. So when in the labor camp, so there was another Jew, his name was Nachman Roseman. Now this fella grew up in an observant home, but like most Jews really in communist Russia, young people caught up in the whole ideology of communism, the workman's utopia. It's a very appealing idea, and it appeals to Jews because it's messianic. That's why Jews are drawn to communism. In fact, it's a Jewish idea. Communism is a Jewish idea. Karl Marx, socialism, because the idea of equality for all Jews, Jews are driven that way because it's Mashiach. It's a corruption of it because it's not guided by Torah, and the end is, the idea is great, but the end is millions are killed in its name. More than Nazism. Stalin killed more than Hitler. And so did Mao Zedong in China and Argentina. Communism is a terrible in the end. The word oppressive, more than oppressive regime. But the idea is wonderful.
Works in Israel with the kibbutz is based on communism.
I said that's why they didn't last. They all fall apart. There's very few left. Yeah, Jews are drawn to that. I mean, you're right. The founding of the state was really a socialist model. It was really a kibbutz, almost communist model. It didn't work because it can't work. Just since we're on the subject.
Looks great on paper.
On paper, it looks good. I'm going to tell you a story. There's a story within a story that will illustrate the point. Animal Farm. Yeah. It's a famous book. So I'll tell you a story that illustrates the point here. The previous Rebbe was once traveling in Russia on a train. This was the very beginnings of the whole revolution. And in Russia, there was a turmoil, and everybody was different parties, very passionate about their party, their political party. It's going to save Russia and so on. And Jews at the forefront of all of this. Just not incidental thing was the Jews that arrested the previous Rebbe later. The Jews were the most passionate communists because, again, driven by idealism. And the previous Rebbe told them that making a terrible mistake, they'll turn on you. That's what happened. Stalin didn't trust the Jews, and liquidated the entire Yevsexiat, which means the Hebrew section, the Jewish section of the Communist Party. They were murdered in the end because he didn't trust the Jews. And so his wife was Jewish. The leaders he murdered. It wasn't Hitler racial killed Jews, but leading communists. And it's back to our story, back to the Gulag. So in the Gulag there was this fellow Nachman Roizman. So he was brought up in an observant home, but as I told you, like most Russian young people, they were caught up. He became a communist and a disavowed atheist, disavowed the religion and atheist. And he actually rose in the ranks of the Communist Party, but he got arrested. He's in Siberia, not for religious reasons. He was in charge of a factory and he was accused of pilfering government funds and whatever. I remember this kind of factory that he worked in. But anyways, he was found guilty, so he was 3 years, whatever it was, Siberia. So there he is in the Siberian labor camp, and Rabbi Osher, the Chassid, Rabbi Osher Sasonkin, befriends him. And amazingly, this Nachman Roizman starts to become Bal Tshuva in the labor camp, to whatever degree. I told other stories about the observance of Shabbos. I mean, you're playing with fire there. But they won the respect of their fellow non-Jewish prisoners that covered for them. They're able to keep Shabbos and to a degree kosher. Just incredible, the sacrifice. But here's the Hanukkah story. So, such a beautiful story, as you'll hear. So, you know the story? No, so tell it to you. So I told it on Friday, so Ricky heard it. Ethel maybe heard it. You'll hear it again, folks, forgive me. So he's telling him the whole story of Hanukkah, which he really didn't know, because brought up in communism. This is the 50s already, the late 50s, early 60s. So he was completely, inculcated with communist teachings, went to the communist schools, had no religious upbringing at all. Parents were afraid to do anything. So he didn't know the story of Hanukkah, and he's telling him about the Chashim Loim, the Maccabees, the Mesiras Nefesh, the sacrifice, and the whole story, and the miracle of the oil. Now, this Nachman guy was a very resourceful kind of fellow. So Rabbi Sasonkin, the Chassid, says to him, maybe you could procure little tins, waste, little cans, and somehow we'll make a little menorah, we'll light the menorah. At the end of the barracks, there was, just off the barracks, was a little room with a basin. It was one sink for 70 prisoners, cold water. It was a labor camp. It's not the Auschwitz, but it wasn't a 5-star hotel. And they would light that with a plan to light there. With little. So this Nachman says you just finished telling me the story of the sacrifice of the Chashmonaim, and we're going to use all little dirty cans? No, we're going to have a beautiful menorah. So the Rosh Hashanah thinks to himself, listen, if Nachman says it's going to be, it's going to be. And sure enough, the day of Erev Hanukkah, he shows up with a beautiful menorah. I don't know how he did it, but I don't know, he didn't describe what, but it was a makeshift. He didn't buy one on Amazon, but he put it together and he got a flask of olive oil, enough for the whole Hanukkah. Unbelievable. A beautiful menorah. And so they light the menorah the first night, the second night, the third night, fourth night, and things are going smoothly. And even the non-Jewish fellow prisoners, they would come to see and to watch. They was marveling at what was happening. He understood the terrible risk and why you're doing this, and explaining the story of Hanukkah. Comes the fifth night, and there's an announcement. In the early evening is a roll call. It never happens. The roll call is 10 o'clock by your bed, after which you can't be outside the bunk, outside the, not called the bunk, what would be called in a prison, barrack. And they couldn't understand what's the point of the roll call. Anyway, it's going to be another way. After this, you can still be loitering in the area outside the bunk, not the courtyard, what would you call it? The yard, the prison yard. So anyway, there has to be another count at 10 o'clock. So what's the point of this one? So the prisoners were saying, they're after you. There's no time to prepare. This is like 7 o'clock when whatever they're lighting. So everybody's there, standing by and in walks an officer, and Sasonkin says never saw a high-ranking officer they never saw before in the whole prison complex. Silence. Of course, as he walks through and inspects, gets somebody behind him is ticking off. Present is present. And these guys are in this little room with their lit menorah. One of the prisoners says, as he's walking in as the officer walks in from the other door, just throw it into the snow. Extinguish it. Rabbi Sasonkin said, no. Do what they want to me. I will not extinguish the Hanukkah lights. Finished. So him and Nachman are standing there. And they're all, now I have to add something. The crime here is double. First of all, fires are forbidden to be lit. Everything's made of wood. The whole place can go up in flames. So this was a capital crime, or a very serious crime. And of course, religious observance. That's why Osher Sasonkin was arrested, is because mind you, the law was you're allowed to yourself, but you can't teach somebody else. That's exactly what he's doing here. He's making it public. Everybody knew this was doubly, serious, deathly serious. And so the officer strides all the way. Then he comes to the place where they're standing by the menorah, and he stands there. It's like an eternity. He's looking at the menorah and he says, Piat, which means 5. The Bosh understood. He was asking, it's the 5th night tonight. Moshe says, Piat, 5th night. The officer turns on his heels and leaves. What was the story here? He was a Jew. He's obviously a Jew. And like as I told you, he had become this prominent member of the Communist Party. And he sees these two Jews. This is beyond explanation. This is the self-sacrifice, the 3rd level. the third level, beyond calculation, I'm a Jew, it can't be any other way, and ready to die for it, that touched, went straight through and touched the essence of this officer. Who knows, maybe it brought back also childhood memories that he obviously knew to this 8 nights and 5 nights. It's the 5th night, and I had no idea, Hanukkah's not on his radar anymore. And they brought it back, and they touched him, and he left. So this is the third level. The third level, they didn't do this to get reward, it was, I'm a Jew, and it can't be any other way. It's higher than any calculation, any reason, any agenda. It's pure and simple. This is the third level. Now we're going to see by Hanukkah that's what happened. Let's go a bit further. I'll say it right now because I don't know if it's going to be even said in the. Yeah. So I'll say it right now because the thing is, in the battle against the Greeks, there was no hope to win. Sometimes you engage in a battle and it's a slim hope, but there's hope. No hope. They went in, they're going to die. Handful. The mightiest, if you read the chronicles of that battle, they sent in, Antiochus sent in, he gathered all of the armies, the Greek armies that were controlling other vassal states, and took the elite. I forgot the numbers, there's tens of thousands. I remember this number, 75 war elephants. An elephant in those days was more potent than any tank today. It was impervious. Arrows, nothing. They just mow down, let's crush. The only way to kill an elephant is to get into the underbelly. That's what happened. Elazar, one of the 5 sons, fought his way. There's also, they're protected by, soldiers that march with them. He fought his way through, went under the underbelly, of the chief, he saw it was the commanding officer, and he thrust his spear under the underbelly, and the animal fell and crushed and killed him. But this was a turning point. In the war, the leader was, but still in the big picture. So this commanding officer, there's many more, and there's 74 other war elephants. The point is, the self-sacrifice was not in order to, there was no agenda, because we're not going to make no sense at all. It was intolerable. It's intolerable that the Beis Hamikdash is defiled, a mockery is made of it, offering, putting idols in the Beis Hamikdash and offering a swine on the altar, desecration of Hashem's name. We fight this to the end. So this was a sacrifice. It's not a question of enhancing your mitzvah. This is quite literally giving up your life. Now, even giving up your life, if you know it's going to achieve the victory, there's also some agenda. It's worth it. They didn't know that was happening. They didn't know what happened. But it did. That's why Hashem responds in kind. What kind of miracle? Doesn't have to happen. It's just pure love. It's more than love. Let's rephrase it. Why did they do what they did? Because I'm Jewish. It can't be any other way. It's an essential thing. Not motivated out of certainly not logic or even devotion. It's more than devotion. It's I'm Jewish. It can't be any other way. So Hashem responds with a miracle that doesn't have an agenda. It's just I am Hashem and we are one. It reveals the essence. That's why Hanukkah has this third level. Now the paradox is, again, all Jews are observing Hanukkah at the third level. Because the paradox is that level everybody has. It's a paradox. The first level, which is a motivation, because I understand and I feel Judaism. A lot of people don't know, they don't know. They don't have that first level. Second level of like the servant that loves the master, wants to do more. Love God. I don't even know, didn't think about it. But I am Jewish, the I am, that's the paradox, everybody's got that. The paradox, the deepest level everybody has. The other two you have to cultivate, comes through education, through learning, etc. But being I am, that's why it comes to Hanukkah, because the Hashemnoim, the Maccabees, expressed the I am Jewish, that touches the I am Jewish of Jews for generations to come until Mashiach comes. And that's why if Jews are going to do it, it's the third level. I don't even know about level 1 or 2. It's just natural because it's the I am Jewish. And interesting enough also, as we get closer to Mashiach's coming, there's one yontif, one mitzvah that Jews are embrace. It's the menorah. Not Sukkot, not Tefillin, not Shabbos. It's Hanukkah. And every year it's more and more popular. The Rebbe did this by bringing it to the public places in thousands and thousands of locations around the world. Come out publicly. When a Jew comes out publicly and lights him, what is he saying? I am Jewish. That's what he's saying, and I'm proud of it. Not I understand, I feel, I love, I believe. He's not describing, it's not an expression of any conscious, nurtured, developed relationship with Judaism. Many don't even know why even like, hey, they don't know the simple story. And yet they'll come. It goes deeper than knowledge, than feeling. It's I am. It touches that I am Jews. And that's what's being touched all over the world, constantly, deeper and deeper, by everything we do, but especially by the Hanukkah menorah. That answers our question. Third level, because that's what happened in the story of Hanukkah, and that enduringly stirs and touches every Jew at that third level. So to make the 3 levels clear, the lowest level is, I understand, I feel Judaism. Higher level is, I'm devoted. I love this. and I'm ready to go the extra mile. And the third level is, I am. It's more than I love. These are all acquired and developed. This is eternal. I am. That's the third level. That's the miracle of Hanukkah. Does Hashem have to do this? Just because we're one. That's the point. Okay. Have a wonderful culminating, because we get to the end of Hanukkah. It's the culmination, the 8 light, the infinite. We're almost there. Today's Chodesh. Good Chodesh and Hanukkah. Thanks for joining, friends.
Rabbi.